All right, what's up, y'all? So first and foremost, I feel really, really bad. My boys over at Publicly Buzzed. I did not I was crazy today. So I thought that they were done streaming because they were on with Jay at the Shaming of Jay. So I didn't think they had anything going. And then I come to find out that they've got something going right now. We're not going to be doing that. Like we are very, very conscious about stepping on each other's toes. I want everybody seeing their great content. I want everybody seeing the Shaming of Jay's great content. So I apologize to my boys. Today's kind of an extenuating circumstance. We had kind of a big deal going down at Delphi. I gave you all a brief, about an 8-minute live from outside the courthouse. I was rushing because I had to get back to Chicago to get on Court TV with Vinny. So I wanted to take some more time with y'all. It was kind of a big day out there, and I'm imagining a bunch of people have a lot of questions. I am going to be answering as many questions as I can. I haven't put that setting on because I haven't figured out how to do it. That if you're not a subscriber, I'm not answering questions. So, like, you'll slip through one more time. But if you're not a subscriber to the show, please do. That really means a ton to us. And make sure you smash the like button, and share. Always sharing. Sharing is caring. So, all right. And hopefully, my better half is going to be joining us. She went to go take care of our big kids' dogs because they had kind of an emergency come up. So she's doing like the amazing shit that she always does, taking care of everybody. So hopefully she's going to be popping in. I'm going to start in the meantime. Plus, she wasn't down there with me, but like always, I want her genius. And I want to be able to throw stuff back and forth with her because it was kind of a crazy day today. So if you're not aware, we're talking Delphi. There was a hearing today, and it was scheduled last minute. All right. So there had been a date for October 31st, and that date had been set for a while. We weren't exactly sure what was going to go on with that date. All of us kind of thought that there was going to be something revolving around the Franks hearing and that crazy 136-page memo. And, then all of a sudden last week, we get notice that the judge is having a hearing today. So, of course, me being the complete psychopath that I am, Kate Harrell, thank you for the super sticker. Is that what it is? It's one of those things. Or you became a member, one of the two, whatever it is. I love it. Someday I'll actually learn what they are. Thanks for doing this. Not only, oh, see, that's so beautiful. I love that so much. Thank you so much. At some point, I'm going to have the cool little songs and shit like that where I'm doing the dancing and all that good shit. But just know that I love it and it means everything to us. All right, so we get notice. Like last night, I'm like, Allie, should I drive down like last night? And I booked a hotel. And then I found out, like, I thought the hearing was at 10 o'clock this morning. And I'm thinking, all right, well, I'm not getting up at 4 in the morning to get over there because it's about a 4-hour drive, a little longer, depending on traffic. And then I found out it was at 2. So I'm like, oh, good. Like, I can sleep in bed. I'll get up real early and I'll drive. So I did. And I got out there like 11:30, got into the courthouse, got in line. Fortunately, they didn't have us waiting outside. Beautiful courthouse, by the way, in Fort Wayne, in Allen County. And I don't know if y'all watched the stream today of that. Just an incredibly beautiful courtroom, like one of the more beautiful courtrooms I've ever been in. So kind of the way the day went, we didn't know what was up. Now, if you're following Delphi, you have an understanding that this week some story had broken about there being a leak of evidence, in particular the crime scene photos, which had been leaked, and with some follow-up from some of the people that it had been leaked with, namely the murder sheet. They did some digging, and they were able to get some really good intel. And of course, they did the right thing, which I knew that they would, and they didn't disperse or disseminate the crime scene photos. As a matter of fact, they did the opposite, and they let everybody know that they had received them, including law enforcement, the state, and the defense, and just said, hey, these things are out there. We want you guys to know that they're out there, just so you're aware that there's an issue. I think that their actions, along with a couple other people that had been sent to, really kept it from actually becoming a leak, and I keep referring to it as a drip. So like, cause I don't think that it made it out there to the public en masse. Like I never ran into them. Somebody offered them to us. We rejected them. Um, so at that point, it became evident that whatever was going on today was going to be revolving around this alleged leak that had come out of the defense attorney's office, namely Baldwin. So, and just so people understand, because I was getting a lot of tweets and a lot of DMs today, and a lot of responses to my tweets, like asking, these guys were they're both private attorneys, but because Richard Allen didn't have the funds to hire an attorney, the judge appointed them. So even though they are private counsel, they were appointed as if they were public defenders. But make no mistake, these guys are absolutely private counsel. Public defenders can be amazing lawyers. The problem with public defenders is that they don't have the time because of their caseload to prepare like they normally would. And that's the advantage, frankly, of hiring private counsel. It's not that you're getting a better lawyer per se. What it is it means you're getting a lawyer that doesn't have a massive caseload, that's going to be able to dedicate more time to your case, especially in a case like this. In a case like this, where you really need a lawyer that's digging in, and he got that. And Baldwin, love him or hate him. If you hate the memo, whatever. If you love the memo, whatever. The bottom line is they were putting the work in. That cannot be denied. There is not going to be a public defender on the planet that is going to have enough time to put together 136 pages of a memorandum. Whether or not it should have all been in there is not the point. The point is that they put the work in. They were clearly digging into the evidence, and they put that thing out there. So going into the day, we really had no idea. Like we're all out in the hallway. Carly, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Boom. Look at that. Man, always coming through in the clutch, Carly. Carly Fulham, you're my favorite. So we're all speculating. I'm out there with Barbara McDonald. I'm out there with Kevin and Ain. I'm out there with Matt Johnson. We're all trying to figure out what's going on with this thing today. And we're all kind of guessing on what we think is going on. And we all came to the conclusion that the impetus of it was clearly the leaked info. And the judge felt that it was such an intense issue that it had to be heard immediately. And I don't necessarily disagree with her. So then I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, is she going to go so far as to remove Baldwin? And Andrew Baldwin, he's got a great reputation. He's been practicing for a long time out there. Him and Rosie both are highly regarded attorneys. Like, these aren't like a couple of shitbag guys that, bottom feeders. They're guys that have a lot of respect from people in the community. And I'm talking about the legal community. So, and again, like I said, love them or hate them, they were doing their job, and their job is to litigate the hell out of the case because, effectively the state's trying to kill their client. Now, at the end of the day, we end up getting let into the courtroom at about, thank you, Daddy Bear, $5 holla. I love it. I love it. So at about 1 o'clock, they finally let us in. There's probably about 80 of us, 90 of us in the hallway. We knew capacity was 90. I was probably about 50th in line. Somehow I ended up in the second row, which was awesome. And so we then sit, and it's like, when I say you could not bring a phone in, it's not like you could bring a phone in, but it had to be off. It was no phones were allowed. Like, when I first got there, I decided I'm going to go check the lay of the land. Cause I get over there, there's nobody in the queue. I'm like, oh man, it's 11, whatever. And I'm like the first dude in line. I'm like, all right. But I walk in the building, and they had clearly let people in. So I'm getting ready to go through the line, and dude sees my Apple Watch is sticking out. He's like, you can't bring that in. I'm like, my watch? He's like, yeah, no electronics. So I had to run back to the car, and I'm like starting to panic. He's like, oh yeah, there's like, I don't know how many people up. There's a ton of people up there. So I'm freaking out that I'd just driven 4 hours. I'm not going to be able to get in. because at that point, I think it's going to be a full day of hearings, and I have no idea what it's going to be. So ultimately, I get back, I get up there. It seems fine. I feel pretty confident I'm going to get in the courtroom. We shoot the shit, and then they finally let us in. So once we're in there, we're all just killing time, and it's a 2:00 start time. We're all trying to figure out what the hell is going to be going on in there today. And ultimately, and then I start hearing the rumors. So I was on the road. If you guys are wondering, I was trying to tweet as much as I could without killing myself driving down. But I came to understand that there had been several filings. One, that there was a new attorney had filed his appearance in the matter, who turned out to be an attorney for Baldwin, okay, one of Allen's attorneys, and that he had filed basically a response, which that response is this thing right here. And it's basically a memorandum talking about the fact that it sounds like they're going to remove or disqualify Baldwin from being counsel for Richard Allen. So clearly they were being proactive. But when you see something like this, you know that something has been discussed in chambers prior to that. Like, this wasn't a first blush thing. Like it had been discussed in chambers with both sides. The judge said, look, we got a problem here. I'm going to have a hearing on it, because I'd say at about 1:50, all of a sudden a parade of cops come in, and that includes Doug Carter, that includes Tony Liggett, and probably about 7 or 8 other cops and investigators all file in, walk into the well of the courtroom, and sit in the jury box. Now, at that point, I'm still thinking, well, gee, I wonder if she's going to have, and what I was hoping was going to happen. Underachiever, you're the bomb. What I was hoping was going to happen is that they were going to have like what I consider to be the preliminary finding stage of whether or not there's going to be a full Franks hearing, because that's something that the judge has to do. All right, the judge has to find that they've given enough information, that has like enough receipts, in order for her to say, okay, we need to have a hearing on this, because what the defense has tendered to me seems like it's a distinct possibility that Tony Liggett lied in order to get the warrant. So, but she has to make that finding before it gets that. So I was hopeful with all these cops here, and namely the cops that mattered with respect to that motion, were there. So I was very optimistic. So then time continues to tick. And so I happen to be sitting right behind Richard Allen's wife, Kathy, and I believe that it's his mother. They're literally I could have touched their hair, they were literally just right in front of me. And Kathy, from the minute she sits down, is weeping. I've been there every time that they've had court, and Kathy gets emotional when they bring Richard in and they sit him down. She's looking at her husband and she starts crying. But this was different. There was no sign of Richard anywhere. I never saw him. I don't know if he made it to the building. I don't know if he made it into the building. I don't know if they stopped him halfway and said, go back. I don't know. Yeah, thanks. It was definitely good not to touch. I did want to so much give them a hug and just say, look, because they're victims too. I say it all the time. They really are. They're in a much different way than the victims' families, obviously, but try to put yourself in their position in terms of if the guy's innocent or if he's guilty, either way, they're victims. Their entire lives have been upended and ruined. Either way, even if he goes to trial and is found not guilty by, because they can't prove the case, everyone that thinks he's guilty now is still going to believe that he's guilty no matter what a jury comes back with. It'll be the O.J. Simpson thing, that the guy got away with murder. His life is forever altered. It doesn't matter what the end result of this trial is. A full exoneration and them getting the wrong or the right guys with just smoking gun evidence is the only thing that would ever clear his name. Him going to trial and him getting a not guilty does not clear his name, because there is a distinction. There's a distinction between being innocent and being found not guilty. And in terms of the court of public opinion, those are two very different things. And it's just the reality of the criminal justice system. So, at any rate, so I felt really empathetic to both these women, and I really wanted to. I felt like if had they stayed for the entire hearing, I was going to make it a point after the hearing to go up to them and say, "Look, there's people out here that support you guys as as a mother and a wife that are going through this because it's brutal. I mean, they're just victims. Like, no matter what, if Richard Allen's the biggest piece of murdering shit in the planet, then he is. That doesn't mean that his family is lumped in with him. I mean, it's just one of those things where, because I could tell you from her behavior, there's no, if he is the guy, this woman has no idea. Like, you could see it. Like, this is a wife who is sitting there mourning her husband. I mean, it's powerful when you're sitting 6 inches away from her. You can feel it in your soul if you're that type of person, and I'm that type of person. So it was like it was a very heavy moment for me, to be honest, like a long time. So at any rate, I digress with all that. But I want you guys to know that, because it's truth. So time just keeps on ticking. All right. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on here? Like, I got to the point where, honestly, I was starting to think, because at some point they come and get Kathy, which I've never seen, not in any of my cases, never in any cases I've covered. They come and get her out of the well of the courtroom. And I'm talking about the court bailiff comes and grabs her and says, "Come back," meaning come back into judge's chambers. So at that point, they escort her in. She's back there for 10 minutes. And I think mom is sitting there still. And then she comes back. She's still crying. And I'm like, my God, like I don't like, and I'm trying to see if by chance she's crying and it maybe it's like tears of like joy. Like, I actually started to think that there was a possibility that the state was electing to dismiss the charges, and that was the reason they had all these cops here. And then it keeps progressing. And at some point, and Baldwin and Rosie are never out there. Baldwin never stepped foot into the well of the courtroom. At some point, I'd say it's about 2:25, Rosie walks into the courtroom, walks right up to Kathy and he whispers something to her and says, "Hey, look, why don't you come with me out in the hallway?" And he's like, "Both of you." So they both stand up. They leave their sweaters. They had like cardigans that they were wearing. They left them in their seats and they head out. I'm like, "Oh, what's up?" And they head out, and I'm like, man, like, I'm still like, my mind's going a million miles an hour. If you guys follow me, I'm like, I'm a thinker. Like, I'm trying to think of whatever could be going on today. I want to figure it out because I want to predict it and write it on a piece of paper, like, Sarnak or some shit. Because like I had written a note to Barb McDonald, and I was going to pass it like I was in grade school, like she was across the courtroom, but I decided against that. So ultimately, about 2 minutes later, mom comes in and grabs the sweaters and like leaves. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, they're leaving. So at that point, I started to really consider the fact that it looked like nothing was going to happen as far as a hearing goes on that day. And to me, that meant one thing, and that meant that his attorneys or attorney, and I'll get to it, but like that Baldwin was either going to be disqualified from the case and removed, or he was withdrawing his appearance, which would have left Allen with only one, or as it turns out, no attorneys, which is exactly what happened. So he takes them out. They never come back. 5 minutes later, the judge takes the bench. She apologizes for the delay. I'm sure most of you guys watched it. And she says, "Look, there were some unforeseen events that took place this afternoon." I was thinking when that sentence was coming out of her mouth, I'm like, oh yeah, she's going to talk about the the leaked evidence or the dripped evidence, but instead she's talking about this afternoon. So at that point, she just comes out and says it flat out that not only Baldwin has withdrawn, but additionally, Rosie has withdrawn, which blew my mind. Like, it absolutely blew my mind. I was not prepared for that. I was prepared for, and I look, Allison and I are like, your right to counsel and your right to a choice of counsel all falls under the Sixth Amendment. And it's one of the most sacred rights that you can have. And so it has to be extreme in order for them to say, all right, the judge being they, to say, look, I'm sorry, but I'm removing you from the case. And you have to know that when Richard Allen had two guys, and again, love them or hate them, either way, these guys were working their ass off on this case. Like, you may hate their approach, but you cannot deny the fact that they were working their asses off on this case. And I happen to believe, I don't care what happened today, that they actually believe that their client is innocent. Like, I've been that guy. I've been that guy with my clients before, where you have no doubt in your mind that your client is innocent. And remember, they know a hell of a lot more about the case than we do. That's facts. Like, as much as everyone who's always online, on Twitter, on here, oh, Richard Allen's guilty. You don't know that. All you have to go by is the probable cause affidavit, and that thing is shit. I hate to tell you that. If they're going to put Richard Allen down, if he's the guy, they better have more than that. I'm just telling you that right now. I don't care who his successor attorneys are. If they're going to get him, they better prove it. And what they have right now is not enough proof. I'm telling you. You've heard it here first. You may not want to hear it. And again, I say it over and over and over and over on repeat. The only thing I care about in this case is getting justice for those two beautiful little girls that were robbed of their lives. That's it. I don't care about anything. I don't care if it's Richard Allen that goes down. If he's the guy, he better go down. If it's somebody else, they better continue to investigate and get them under arrest and get them on trial. Whoever it is, whether it's Allen or these other dudes, I don't care, as long as they're held accountable for their actions and it's the right person. That's all we can all care about, because it's the only answer. It's the only correct answer in this equation. Justice only is served one way, and it's to convict the correct person, period. And my point is that when people are, have the torches and the pitchforks for Richard Allen, I'd suggest read the PCA again. That is not enough to convict somebody in this country. I'm sorry, it's not. And that doesn't mean that I think he's innocent. What it means is, if that's all their evidence, they've got a long way to go. So, and like, forgetting about the memo, I've thought this from the beginning. When you look at the strength of the bail application in Gilgo Beach against Rex Heuermann, that thing reads like a how-to on how to put together a case to convict somebody. That is a strong, what would have been a PCA, but they indicted him through a grand jury. So we saw what would have been the PCA as a bail application. All right. So when you compare that to what they have against Allen, it's scary. The whole thing scares me. It scares me for the families of the girls. That's who it scares me for. And it really does. So when the judge says it, I'm like, man, I'm sitting there stunned. I really am. I'm like, wow, like I could have seen Baldwin going, but seeing both of them go. So then that does me in mentally for about a half an hour, where I'm just trying to figure out, man, what do so obviously I run out, I come out and do the live for y'all. I got to get in the car, and believe me, I wanted to be tweeting, but I didn't want to die. I'm like, I was still tweeting some. I'm trying to see if I had questions on the live that I had done, which is why I like butted in on my boys at Publicly Buzz and did this, because I really do want to get to questions, and I'm going to get to them, y'all. If you guys are putting them in, it's me solo right now, so you're all going to have to bear with me. I've got mod help coming on the way. I've got some beautiful people that are going to be helping me mod that will be able to throw these questions up there for me, but I'll get to them, I promise. So if you're typing questions in, I'm going to go through and I'll get to them, I promise. But I start thinking about, all right, what is like what went down back there? Because what we know is that everything that happened in that courtroom happened back in chambers. And so this document that I've put up, which is a 4-pager, and it's basically this attorney was hired, and he's a criminal defense guy, an old timer. He was sitting right in front of me. He had to be in his 80s, real old guy. He put this together. It's not a lengthy memorandum. It's 4 pages, and essentially what it says, and I'll just give you the thumbnail of it, is that Baldwin was. I want to get the word because it's so good. I can't remember if it was hoodwinked or it was like a boondoggled. It's like a word. I'm too blind to see it, but you guys could probably read it. Somebody will put it in the comments what it was. It's one of those words that never gets used anymore. Oh my God. Galen, 20. Oh man. Thank you so much. I so much appreciate that. That is amazing. That is so generous. I mean, you guys are amazing. Snookered. Thank you. Thank you both. Unmasked Truth and Katie. Well, you guys, Kate, you both came in unbelievably with so Snooker. So he's essentially saying that, look, Baldwin and remember, Baldwin and Rosie are both private counsel. They both have their own firms that they're a part of. They are not in the same office. They're not in the same law firm. They both have separate practices. So Baldwin apparently was the caretaker of the discovery. Okay. And back on like February 17th, and I want people to understand, like, there's a difference between a gag order. A gag order, and I'm going to say this because people confuse it all the time, is not the same thing as a protective order or a case being sealed. A gag order is saying that everybody involved with the case, from the lawyers down to the lawyers' staff, down to law enforcement, down to the clerks, everybody that's involved in the case cannot talk to the press about the facts of the case. They can talk about general things like dates and, something that was filed. Yeah, we filed a motion today, but they can't get into any of the facts. That's what a gag is. A gag is used to silence the actors in order to keep them shut up so that they're not trying the case in the press. Now, obviously, as we know, the defense, when they filed their motion, that was everyone got that vibe, and you got the right vibe. I mean, the defense definitely used that opportunity to get their defense of the case out to the public, which you can't be that pissed, because if you don't understand, that's what a PCA is. The probable cause affidavit is the state getting their theory of the case out to everybody ahead of time. Amy K, new member, welcome. You get the Jordans. Amy K, you get the Jordans. You're going to have the nice little Jordans right next to your name. And we do the Jordans because obviously I'm a Chicago guy, and this is the home of the GOAT. So, if you know, you know. All right. So thank you, Amy K. So at that point, I'm like, okay, look, we've got to try to figure this out in terms of, so Baldwin is saying, look, I let a guy who I consider to be a close friend use an office space, like an actual office space in my office. I apparently did not keep the discovery under lock and key. And at some point, this guy snuck in and either took photographs or made copies of the discovery, clearly after hours. But Baldwin's story is that he had no knowledge of it. And I'm going to tell you that I completely believe that. And here's why. This is why I believe it. If you guys, as observers of trials, I would assume that you would know that one of the biggest fights pre-trial and what they call a motion in limine is the battle between the state and the defense when you have a brutal, brutal crime like this, where 2 beautiful little girls are violently murdered, in terms of how much do we show the jury? What pictures and how many of them are we going to show the jury of these two beautiful girls that were slaughtered? Okay. For the defense, we don't want them to see any of them. You need to understand that. It serves no advantage to the defense to be putting out pictures that are only going to serve to incite and enrage the public that these two girls met this fate. It is a distinct advantage for the prosecution for them to have those pictures go out, because you know what happens to a jury when they see those pictures? They stop thinking and they start feeling. And when you have a jury that's going to reach a verdict based on this and not this, that's when your client goes down if you're the defense counsel, because you cannot overcome the feelings and the emotions that the jury is feeling and their desire for revenge. Somebody's paying the price, and it's going to be the guy that's sitting at that table. So to think that the defense would have actively wanted these to get out is in contravention to every kind of logical thought that's ever come into my mind about being a defense attorney. It makes zero sense. It just does. It makes zero sense. There's, if anyone can come up with any reason in this chat that they can think why the defense would want those pictures out, and if like, and I could predict what it's going to be. Somebody's going to come on and say, okay, they wanted to show the pictures to support the fact that they're saying that it was ritualistic in nature. Not necessarily that it was a ritualistic sacrifice, but that it was ritualistic in nature. That whoever did it was trying to make it look like it was a ritualistic sacrifice. And I reject that, because to say that, okay, well, we want to get the pictures of the sticks out, you still have to get the pictures of the girls out. And that's what matters. No, like, the defense will never want that to happen. There is no reason for them to have wanted those pictures out. So I have to believe, going into this hearing, that Baldwin did not have knowledge. And frankly, for them to go to the hearing, which was going to have, so that's, at some point I realize, after the judge says they've both withdrawn, I then realized that all those officers were there today to testify on the removal hearing, because it became evident that once the leak was exposed, or the drip was exposed, that Indiana State Police said they were going to investigate, which they clearly did. So like, all of those cops were going to be testifying as to what they discovered in terms of the leak in order to try to get Baldwin removed from the case. So clearly what goes on back in chambers, okay, is that Gull sits them all down, and that's why Kathy's called back, because at some point Baldwin's got to make a decision. The judge says to him, and I'm speculating, but I'm going to call it an educated guess, and I bet that I'm right. But she said, look, Andrew, we're going to hearing on this today. You've got two choices. You can either, I will give you the opportunity to withdraw from the case without it going to hearing, which the significance of that is if he goes to hearing, okay, and for those of you guys who are wondering what the sanctions are, every lawyer in every state, there is a disciplinary committee that oversees all the lawyers in every state. In Illinois, it's called the ARDC. I'm not sure what it's called in Indiana. I'm sure if we have an Indiana lawyer in here, they'll tell me what it is. But if he is removed after hearing, there then is a record, a court record of exactly what took place. He is then, it's mandatorily going to get reported to the ARDC, or the equivalent of what it is in Indiana, and he's going to have to answer for it. And that is the point where you're concerned about becoming disbarred or suspended for months or longer, depending on whether or not the disciplinary committee feels that it's warranted. So Baldwin could have gone from, because I saw people make comments like, oh, yeah, they wanted to go repair their, their credibility. I'm like, nah, man. Like, these guys, like, if you read this 4-page document, these guys wanted to stay on that case. They walked into that courtroom today with every intention on fighting this. But when Gull said, look, we're going to go to a full hearing. And she, like, in a pretrial hearing, um, essentially what happens, and they're typically back in chambers, they're not out in the well of the courtroom. It's a more casual atmosphere. Like the judge is in her robe and they're sitting there and they're candidly talking. And I know this from experience. This isn't me guessing. I've done them many, 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 many times. And she most likely said, if they show me that you were sloppy, because if you look at the protective order that she signed back on February 17th, he was allowed to disseminate to his private investigator, to his experts, but it was his responsibility for everyone that he disseminated to or had access to the documents that they follow the court order, which means if he was sloppy, which he was admittedly in this document, because he took preventative measures after he found out of the leak. Then he puts him in a gun safe. Prior to that, he had not. So if he's sloppy and the judge found that it was sloppy enough, her move was probably to say, just frankly, to Andrew, I'm inclined to remove you from the case. And if she has that conversation with them, then it turns into an entirely new conversation. The conversation then becomes with Rosie and Baldwin. So they're throwing hypotheticals at each other. They're calling Kathy back. Kathy's hysterical because her husband is about to lose both of his attorneys who actually appear to give a shit. And if you're a defense attorney, it's pretty critical that you actually give a shit about what you're doing as opposed to just mailing it in. And that's for everybody. That's for the victims' families, because again, I'll say it once and I've said it a million times. If this thing gets kicked back on appeal because the defense did a shitty job, then the families of the victims have to sit through this nightmare a second time and then go through the appellate process again. We're talking 15, 20 years of somebody's life or of families' lives where they're sitting there not knowing what the appellate process is. Every time something's filed, they're like, oh my God, are the people that killed my girls getting out? Because they don't understand the process. And frankly, the state rarely explains it to them. So, these poor families sit there not knowing. They hear about court dates and they're like, oh my God, what does this mean? What does it mean? Like we all know it's the fear of the unknown that's the scariest thing. And it doesn't have to just be, think about anything in your life. Like if you think that you have some, like you're feeling weird and you're like, oh my God, do I have some kind of like disease? And you're in your mind, you're freaking out because it's the unknown. And then you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, oh, it's stress. And then you're like, oh, I mean, it's like the fear of the unknown is always crippling. And imagine being the families of the victims and you've got two shithead attorneys that come in and just shit the bed on the case. They don't object to anything. They don't file the right nothing happens that should be happening in a case of this magnitude, where it's going to be appealed down the road. And if everybody goes in and does the job properly, the odds of it getting overturned on appeal are diminished massively. So that's why it matters. That's why you want good attorneys on both sides. So, like just always keep that in mind. Like a lot of times, like you wouldn't believe how many people are like, oh man, like now it makes sense. That's why we need defense attorneys that are actually good at their jobs on these types of trials, so that the families don't have to live through this nightmare again. And that's facts. That is absolute facts. So getting back to like what the conversation must have been back in chambers. So the judge says, look, Baldwin, what are you going to do? It's either like, and I don't like, could it have been, like you can't fire me, I quit situation? Probably not. Like Baldwin's not going in there ballsy like that. Like whenever you've got a judge coming hot, and Gull, I'm sure at this point was fed up with all this bullshit. She was fed up with the fact that they filed the memo unsealed for the whole world to see. And then it gets followed up with by this thing. Now, at that point, she's got to be beyond. she's just got to be like, man, enough. So she tells him, look, I'm going to give you the opportunity to withdraw. And if you do, I don't have to mandatorily report it. Like I said, if he goes to hearing on it and he's found to be disqualified by the judge because he violated the protective order, which I think she would have had to have found, because technically he did, even if it wasn't his intention. Being sloppy is just as bad. Well, maybe not just as bad. It's in the ballpark of being as bad as actually disseminating himself. Like if you've got a judge that is super, and we all know that this case has been super secretive from the get, from the minute the girls went missing to the minute they started like doling out piecemeal teeny bits of information, to the time Alan's arrested, to the time that they had the probable cause affidavit sealed. Can you guys remember? like when I saw it, I'm like, what do they seal this for? If it's the names, redact the names, because the rest of it, there's nothing here that requires it to be sealed. Like no one's going to be in peril because this thing is released to the public. It wasn't that kind of affidavit, because you have to be able to, for constitutionality's sake, you got to be able to show some pretty like effusive type things in terms of what's in there that are potentially explosive and or dangerous to the safety and well-being of either witnesses, family members, whoever, counsel, whoever it is. Like there's got to be a real reason why you're asking for it to be sealed. So when that came out, that didn't exist. All right. But what that tells us is how serious. And when Gull took over, she was dead serious. She's like, I'm not letting any of this out. I can see where there's like it's like she had a magic ball and could see exactly where this thing was going to go. And she was right. I mean, as a society with our access to online, and I know a lot of brilliant people online that dig into these cases, a ton of them, who like I really respect the hell out of, who really dig deep into these cases and spend time analyzing these cases. And sometimes they're right about shit. Sometimes they're not. But when you have that many people out here, and I'm talking about on the planet, that have the ability to be able to dig into these cases, it's like an entirely different world than we've ever lived in terms of internet sleuths, web sleuths, just people that are digging into these cases. Like we've never had this really ever in our existence. Every word that every lawyer writes and or says in court is parsed. Think about it. Think about every case that we're following. Think about the Idaho 4 case. Think about this case now. This case had fallen off the radar. And I kept telling people, I'm like, don't forget about Delphi. Please don't forget about Delphi. Because everyone was so wrapped up in Idaho 4. I'm like, please don't forget about Delphi. You know, because we had an arrest that just predated the Idaho 4 arrest by a few months on a huge case. Frankly, to me, Delphi was the biggest case. It's still the biggest case there is in true crime world. And that's not to diminish that I'm thrilled that they got an arrest made on Idaho 4 and that they got an arrest on Gilgo. And I mean, there's so many cases right now that are going, it's like, it's mind boggling. And like, you guys know me, I'm out there, I'm in these streets, I'm on court TV, I'm covering so many cases. Like, frankly, as old as I am, I don't know how I remember all of this shit, but for some reason I do. I can't remember anything else though. But back to it, like there's this conversation that has to be taking place in chambers. All right. And it turns, so if Baldwin says, okay, well, theoretically, let's assume, Your Honor, that I'm going to withdraw. The question then shifts to Cozy, and Cozy's got to decide whether he's going to stick, because I don't think he was in any peril. I just want to be abundantly clear. There was not one word that came out from anybody that he had anything to do with it. Rosie seemed like he was like just clear as day. Again, they had two separate offices. It seemed that Baldwin was the caretaker of the discovery, and there was no intimation whatsoever that anything had come out of Rosie's office. So he wasn't in peril. But the fact of the matter is when you've got two guys that have gone to war in a case like this, and they've come up with this defense theory, and again, this wasn't made up. This was based on the discovery that was tendered to them by the state. I please understand that. Like every time I read a comment of somebody like, oh, they just made all this shit up. I'm like, man, dude, quit talking about the case. Quit, like, go look at something else, because you're not reading. You don't understand what's going on with the case. That's not what happened. Everything that they came up with was tendered to them by the state in discovery. Understand that. Okay. Now, is it their interpretation of the same things? Yes. Does it make them right? No. But it exists in the discovery. That's like what the law is. You got two different sides interpreting the same data in two different ways. That is the entire purpose of the practice of law, people. That is what it exists for. Every statute is interpreted by one side one way and another side another way. Evidence, same thing. Interpreted by the state one way, interpreted by the defense another way. Sometimes the state has facts that are so in stone and so bad, it can only be interpreted in one way. This case is not that case. This case has a lot of evidence out there that apparently can be interpreted in a different way, to the extent where I felt like they need to reopen the investigation for the girl's sake, for the family's sake. And lo and behold, they're out there deposing all the guys that they named, or at least 3 of the guys that the defense named as of August 23rd. These guys all got re-deposed or re-interviewed, which tells you a lot. I mean, if they're going to reopen the investigation, then just be transparent about it, but I digress. All right. So at that point, this conversation's taking place, and then they're calling Kathy back. Like, I don't know if Richard Allen's there. Okay. Richard Allen has a say-so in this. Like, Richard Allen, is his 6th Amendment right. Like anytime I've withdrawn, or Allison and I withdraw from a case, the judge always asks the defendant, on the record, hey, Bob is trying to withdraw from your case. Mr. So-and-so, are you okay with it? And depending on what the defendant says, the defendant could say, no, I'm not okay with it. Because one thing, we cannot come into a court and say that we're withdrawing because of money, because the guy didn't pay me. It's not, there has to be a breakdown typically of the attorney-client relationship to the extent where you cannot work together anymore. That's typically what you need to get out of a case. Now, this thing had a trial date that was looming, and I say it all the time, like, for y'all that think that January is way off in the future, like if you're a lawyer preparing for a case like this, it's like, boop, it's here. It's a blink of an eye. And it did, like, time, like is on a different scale. Like it just moves faster when you're prepping for a case like this. It's like, there's not enough hours in the day, and that date is upon you immediately. That case was never going January 8th. There's no way. Like, we hadn't even had the Franks hearing, and there was tons more motions that were going to be filed. I mean, a case like this typically takes between 2 and 3 years to get to trial. It just does. The motion work is crazy. Oh, Amy K. It seems like Amy is just like giving until it hurts. Thank you so much, Amy. I appreciate you. All right. Let me, like, I've been yapping so long. If I've missed anybody, let me see. Carly, Underachiever, Charmaine. Oh, Charmaine always comes through with the beautiful gifted memberships. I love you. Thank you so much. Amy K. Yeah, she became a new member, so she doubled up. Only here for the snacks. Thank you so much. Charmaine, gifting again. Jennifer Johnson, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Oh, hey, Paisan, the True Crime Cafe with the Dago. Hey, Paisano, my guy. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Thank you for gifting 5. That's amazing. Thank you so much. All right, so this conversation takes place. Baldwin says, all right, look, I'm gonna bounce. I'm gonna withdraw. I think it's in Richard's best interest that I not go out there and shit all over his case and put this all out on the record, and it's a public hearing. Everything would have been hanging out there. And I mean, the fact of the matter is we have this document here, which is basically a denial that he had anything to do with it, like intentionally had anything to do with it. This is a reckless type of situation where he wasn't protecting the documents like he should have. So he says, look, I think it's best for Richard if I step out of the case. So then Rosie has a decision to make. Rosie's like, okay, do I stay on? And it's not an easy question to answer because these two guys developed this thing together in terms of the defense. Now, he can't try it alone. Like one case, like a case like this cannot be a single lawyer. He needs help. He needs another lawyer on it. Like you just cannot, you have to have a second chair on a case like this, like without question. Like McClelland has one. It was actually the first time I'd ever seen his second chair sitting at the table today. And he was just sitting there like this the entire time. It was kind of strange. He was like McClelland didn't have a notepad with him. I'm like, what is going on with dude? I'm like, there's clearly nothing happening because he doesn't even have a legal pad with him, which was accurate. But, you know, so Rosie's got to think, all right, if I stay on, okay, what happens if and so Richard Allen is still broke. And again, these guys were appointed. He did not pay these guys. They were appointed. The county is paying for both Baldwin and Rosie's fees, or they were. Okay, now they're not. Now what's going to happen on the 31st is the judge is going to be searching. And I have every hope that she's going to be looking for good attorneys that are, and again, we're talking about Carroll County is small. Like they don't have a huge PD's office, right? So they don't have the manpower in there to handle a case like this. This is why they dip into the private sector and they're like, okay, we're plucking you and we're plucking you. You're now appointed and we're going to pay you, but you're defending this case. So the search will be going on for the next 10 days. And then on the 31st, the judge is going to appoint him new counsel on that day. And then on that day, she's going to strike the trial date. So it's not going to be going on January 8th. That is in stone. And at that point, Rosie's got to be thinking about, so we're going back to today. Rosie's thinking, all right, what happens if they appoint a guy who then not only has to catch up to where I'm at, meaning he's got to go through everything, because this isn't the kind of case where you can just brief somebody. Like, oh, yeah, come on, man, have a seat. Hey, you know, they're fucked. You know, they don't have it. The case sucks. No, it's not like that. The guy has to go through everything. Like whoever it is, the guy, the gal, whoever it is, whoever the new lawyer is going to have to go through all of the discovery. And we know it's voluminous. It's massive. It's huge amounts, hard drives, flash drives, CDs, paper. It's a massive amount of discovery, right? So Rosie's got to sit there while this person's getting caught up to speed. And he's sitting there twiddling his thumbs and just waiting for this guy to come to him and say, all right, look, man, I read your memo and I'm not with it. Like I disagree completely. So if you have a situation where Rosie has dug in to this position, that the defense is going to be a Saudi defense, some other dude did it. And this guy, the new guy is like, or the new gal is like, man, no, I'm not feeling it. You've got a real problem. You then have two attorneys that are not in agreement on how to defend the case. And it's critical. So clearly that conversation takes place. I mean, if you want to go on and help and jump on downstairs, that would be great. Allison's here, folks. So she's going to hopefully jump on and help me out. And hopefully she's going to go through the questions and she'll start popping them up for me. So let me send her an invite. I didn't even do that. What a jerk. So like, that's the big question for Rosie. You know, he's got to answer that question. If I'm going to stay on the case, what if I have a complete disagreement with new counsel about how to defend the case? It becomes untenable. One of them's going to have to go. And then what are we doing to the victim's family? We're starting at ground zero again. It's a tough situation. I mean, I can see it. As stunned as I was that it happened, like after the fact, I can understand why it happened, you know, and essentially, I mean, it left the guy who's paying the biggest price is Richard Allen. And that's just facts. And, you know, if you're of the mindset, screw Richard Allen, he's a piece of shit, he killed the girls, you're not thinking about it the right way. He might have. And if they have the evidence, he's going to pay for his crimes, but we need to get there first. And we want to do it right so that we're not doing it again. As I went through it once, we don't want to torture the family. So basically, that's where we're left. And ultimately, I think Rosie clearly made the decision that he was going to withdraw as well. And, you know, you just see I want you to imagine. And like I tell you, like I had the vibe from sitting 3 feet away from this woman, and I've sat behind her, I think, at every hearing that I've been to. I think that his wife, despite the fact that exists in this world these alleged confessions, and clearly he said something to her to the effect that he killed the girls over the phone. That's not alleged. The defense has acknowledged that took place. But as my wife always says, until we hear the context, the tone, the tenor of those recordings to see what he sounds like, to see what exactly he's saying, we have to take him with a grain of salt. Even if I don't take into consideration the fact that we know now that the defense was not full of shit about the patches. They were wearing the patches. I mean, is it possible for them to have put the squeeze on Allen? Of course. Like, for any of you out there that doubt that is a truth, I'd suggest that you write any letter to any high-profile defendant and ask them, like say they're convicted, 20 years convicted, they get tortured in there. If you were alleged to have killed a child, you really get tortured in there. And I'm not just talking about by the guards. I'm talking about by the inmates. They hate people that cause harm to children, whether it's pedophiles, whether it's child murderers. You are despised in jail. And I'm talking, they don't give a shit about a presumption of innocence in jail while you're awaiting trial. There's not deep thinking like that going on. There's no esoteric conversations and debates happening in jail. All they care about is that you're in there and they're saying you did it, sucker. You know, and that's facts. Oh, all right, Allie's here. What up?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me? I don't have my microphone. I just came from feeding our son's dogs and in my workout clothes.
We can hear you. You look beautiful. You sound fantastic. We got a lot of folks. So I've pretty much gone through everything that went down. So why don't we try to field some questions?
All right. So I'm going to start with the first one that I'm seeing, and you'll have to go up and see if you see anything else. So Criminality said, Bob, why was McClellan there for hours before the hearing?
Can you put it up? Do you know how to put it up? Can you go into all you have to do is hit show.
I don't know that I have the power to do that.
What? All right. So where is it? Can you star it for me?
They're colored, so it's going to be like yellow.
No,
I don't know. On your end, it looks different.
Oh, see, Allison. Remember, Allison is she's like, if you're not like a member or you haven't paid a super sticker, she doesn't read your questions. Remember, she's much more strict than I am, kids. So
for Benny, and even though I can't put it up, answer that question.
Okay,
why
so
was
what was the
McClellan there for hours before the hearing with his witnesses, and what witnesses?
Okay, give me an idea of the time so I can put it up. I want to put the question.
It was babe, it was like super recent. It's
no, can you just read me the actual time? Are you seeing the times on there?
No, just answer the question. I don't see that.
So do you have the chat up, or are you looking on YouTube?
I'm looking on my phone.
Okay, so look on the screen of your computer. Sorry,
I don't see it because it's not yellow over there. So just
do you have live or
stop arguing about this and answer the question?
I'm not trying to argue, honey. I'm trying to teach you how to use the thing. All right. Sorry. See, this is real life, kids. All right. So because McClellan was going in thinking they were going to hearing. That's why. This was not preconceived. Like, Gull did not go into this day assuming that Andrew was going to get disqualified and that Rosie was also going to withdraw. Like Allison, like I think she came up with the right answer when she said when the judge said that something unexpected happened. I think that what the unexpected is that Rosie also withdrew.
Right.
I
So that
think
he had 0 lawyers left.
right. So like I think that took her by surprise a little bit. But to answer your question, McClelland came there ready to to go to a hearing on it. Like, and that's why I'm saying those cops were there to testify. They had been investigating.
Did you already list everybody that was there? Because that was part of the question.
Beyond Tony Carter or Doug Carter and Tony Liggett, no. Like I couldn't tell you. There were 9 cops there. I don't know who they were. They were all sitting there. There was one female in there. I don't know who she was. And I was asking everybody around me, like, if we could name them. Most of them were just investigators, but the 2 main guys, Liggett was definitely there and Doug Carter were there. Like, those were the 2 main cats. So they had a lot of people there. They had a lot of ammo there that they were going to be able to put on evidence that they had investigated. They had come to the conclusion that, yes, somebody that was in Baldwin's office had access to the file, and this particular person made copies and or took pictures and then disseminated it.
And then I don't know if you already mentioned that the protective order put the burden on the defense attorneys to protect all of that.
I did mention that.
Okay. Yeah. So, and then the other thing, like with the hours, it's clear that the judge had them come in early to address, these issues that dealt with, whether one of the attorneys was going to be disqualified or whatever the case may be. All right, then the next question is Jen Taylor. Does this county have a PD's office or a wheel? And I don't know if you know the answer.
They do have a very small PD's office, and the answer is that's why they're going out to private counsel. Like they don't have anybody in that. Like they're. I mean, we're talking about a town of 1,400 people, so Carroll County is a very small PD's office. I mean, they don't.
So it's probably not a wheel then. In the alternative, it's probably the judge looking over who are the lawyers in the private sector that have been willing to take on free cases, as opposed to like, we're going to spin it and it's going to land on someone, which, they do in lots of other places.
Yeah, no. And this is it. Like, the wheels are usually for the judges, not lawyers. First of all. And like, this was the type of case where she knew they had to be competent. Like she's going to find another competent attorney. She's just not going to some schmo. Like, she went to attorneys that she knew could handle this type of matter. So, whoever she's going to select, I was saying, I hope they pick SQ. I do. Like, I hope Chris gets stuck on it. Like, Chris,
why does he do public, that he does court appointments?
You don't have a choice. When the judge in a county like this, when they come, because those guys are in that county, Chris is up in Indy, so they wouldn't go to him. But their reach is, look, I'm gonna dig in a little bit, and I'm gonna find a lawyer that's worth their salt. Because you could tell, and I was having the comments, love them or hate them, these guys were going hard. These guys were defending the hell out of that case. Period. And I was explaining to people, that's like, you could tell that these guys weren't just like straight up PDs, because no PD on the planet has the time to draft anything even remotely close to that. Right. You know what I'm saying?
So, all right. Brutally Honest says, and I'll take this one, there's no advantage. He's talking about the leak. The defense already made their move with the Franks motion / memorandum. They didn't need to leak the pictures as well and risk the problems. And brutally honest, I couldn't agree with you 1,000 times more. I am of the same position. Like, they described everything in the memorandum. They put it all out there in the memorandum. And as Bob and I have both said, the last thing a defense attorney typically wants is gruesome pictures of the victims out in the public, because it definitely influences people and garners more hatred for the person accused, because as many of us know, when you're accused, most of America assumes you're guilty.
100%. Yeah. And I had kind of dug into that aspect of it, but I mean, man, it's like it's rough. I mean, the whole situation, and really, again, like you have to feel for the families because I mean, it's basically look. And I was saying this thing was never going January 8th. This was never going to trial January 8th. So, but I mean, we're a year into it. You know what I mean? Whoever new counsel is starting from scratch, and they don't have to. So, like the next question, and I want you to answer it. And Cletus, real crime with Cletus. I love you, man. Thank you for that $5 holla. So appreciated. And I feel terrible for Alan. Last time we seen him, he looked like he crawled off page 354 of a Dostoevsky novel, which is Crime and Punishment for y'all who haven't read it. And now his dude's bailed. Truth. I mean, these guys didn't want to bail. That I promise you. Like this was not like.
Well, I did have the one thought that maybe Rosie bailed because he was saying, I know that your theory was well, isn't your position that he bailed because, well, you're firing my,
no,
my co-counsel here?
No, you weren't even watching the live when you were driving home.
I thought that was what you said. No, I was not. When I was driving home, no, it was raining and no.
I bet you were watching Fall from the House of Usher. I bet
I was actually
admit it.
I was on the phone with multiple business.
I believe you. No, like my real thing is I think that it would have become untenable. Number one, like I agreed with you.
So he bailed is what you're saying, though.
What?
If he thought it was going to be untenable.
I was just starting to answer before you interrupted me again. So like all I was saying was I agree with you. Like you had said, I think that he was posed with the situation like, okay, I can't sit here idle for a year while this new guy is getting up to speed. But I added on to it that I think it's an issue potentially that the new lawyer may completely disagree with his theory of defense. And at that point, you've got an impasse, which I think creates a situation where one of the two of them is going to have to withdraw. You cannot have two attorneys on the same defense butting heads on how to defend the case. It does not work.
Right.
I mean, you could have slightly different theories, but if you have a guy like, dude, your Odinism thing is like the most insane thing I've ever heard, and there's no way in hell I'm stepping into the well of the courtroom and arguing that, you've got a problem. You know what I mean? So, like, I think at the end of the day, I think they both decided that for Richard's benefit, that as much as it pained them both, that they were going to fall on the sword, and that they were going to withdraw because his best shot, instead of breaking up the team, is to get him just fresh counsel so that they can start from scratch. Now, let me ask you this, babe. Do you think, like, just what is the plain answer? Does new counsel, because everything was entered and continued, so all the motions that are still out there still exist in the world, they're still on the docket. Does new counsel have to abide by and or adopt or argue those motions?
No, they can make up their own mind, but it would be, they'd have to take it very, very seriously, because obviously if there's any ineffective assistance of counsel argument, like, hey, perfectly valid legal arguments were laid out for you, boom, boom, boom. But no, they don't have to. They can adopt in part of it. They can adopt all of it. They can abandon it. So yeah. And I just want to thank Jennifer Johnson, who gifted a Defense Diaries podcast membership.
Woo! See, I wish, like,
you don't have your sound effects.
I know, babe. I'm failing everything. I'll get
better. Bob, you're fucking up.
Sorry, babe. All right. So, all right. Like, I did a lot of talking. So,
am I allowed to say that?
I mean, I think we're deep enough in, we're not going to get penalized. Like, there is like rules about swearing that I'm still not 100%. I think we're way, way deep into it.
So deep.
All right. So we don't have any of our mods in here because I totally screwed Steve and Dan. Like, I did not know they were going live. and I
Oh,
should know the
wow.
schedule. Yeah, I
You
totally,
butted up against your friends.
I
Nice.
like my homies. Like, so I felt like
Your
really,
people.
really horrible. But we don't have any mods. So y'all,
I'm looking and seeing like you got the last donation like request, and I don't see anything
no, but like
else.
we don't have anybody like putting our like our links for everything. And look, y'all, if you're just
Oh,
tuning in, please subscribe, please like, please share. Like that's huge. And just so you both know, like not both of you, both 434 of you, we have a podcast. Like that,
we
the Tourette's
do.
Diaries podcast is why we do all of this. And we really dig into this a little bit deeper. Like right now, we're digging into Avery and we're doing a deep.
Oh, I found stuff. There. Okay, there's more stuff over here. All right. So
What do
you
you
got
got?
to go on to the comment thing. Did you talk about Kate Harrell? Thanks for doing this.
I thanked everybody so far. Like the last Jennifer Johnson, 1019, boop. Thank you. I think that was the last one that I had not thanked. I
Well,
think.
I just thanked her. So,
Oh, you did? All right. Well, we
yep.
double thanked her. All right. So I've obviously been doing the talking. Like, is there anything that you kind of want to bring up?
Yeah, I want to bring up Amy K's question. Bob, for those of us who are behind, will you give us the TLDR up there where you are now?
What's TLDR? What is
I
that?
think it's a typo.
What? All right, retype the question.
Where you are now. Like
So,
maybe like a summary of something. I don't know.
okay. Whoever wrote the question, tell it like pretend like I'm super exactly this. I don't understand the internet. What does that acronym mean? Yeah, all right. So we've got new mods coming. We don't have any of our links up. We don't have our link tree. Like I'm like, I didn't have time. I just wanted
It's
to
all
do
right. Just you're giving
right.
the people what they want. Who cares?
Exactly.
And the True Crime Cafe with Dago, or
my God, it's Dago, dude.
I can't even tell the letters because I'm half blind. He said you're doing awesome, brother.
Yeah, you're doing awesome, Dago, because like this is the third thing you've donated, man. So you, my friend, are doing awesome. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. All right. I'm gonna break Allison's rule. I know she's a real stickler for the rules, but one of the reasons I wanted to get on here was because I wanted to answer any questions that anybody has. So
Wow.
instead of me going back, and now that you got both Allie and I,
Thanks, Publicly Buzzed.
yeah.
Okay, so then I
Steve,
say you just kind of glance over the comments and start talking about something that kind of addresses a lot of the questions that people asked. You know what I
okay, so
mean?
now that both Dan and Steve are here, you guys, I love you. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to step on your toes, brother. I like, please, I love you. And boom, look at this. Like, not only did I shit on them by interrupting their, like, because they were doing something cool. Like, I felt like if there was some way I could have walked it back, because I only gave people like 15 seconds notice. It was really 15 minutes, but it was super short. But then I double checked, and then sure as shit, Dan and Steve are on there doing something really, really cool. So please, y'all, Dan, Steve, put your links in there, please, so that people can see them. Please go back on the replay. They were going through like these bombshell affidavits that just dropped on Gilgo Beach. It's mind-blowing stuff. That case is blowing up too. So make sure you guys go on Replay Crew for those guys, because they're amazing dudes and I love them like brothers. So thank you guys, and I'm sorry again. True Compass, you know who this is? Our girl. This is Shay. Brand new podcast for kids. Check it out. She's diving into the aspect of us doing this ethically as creators, we actually care about, navigating these incredibly difficult cases where there's so many people that are in so much pain. And I'm talking like lifelong pain, and us as creators taking some responsibility and not exploiting these people, and treating it with care and the respect that it deserves. So her pod is very important, and I'm definitely going to be hanging with her and doing an ep with her because I think I'm 100% behind what she's doing, and I think her message is incredibly important. So, thank you for that, Shay. I appreciate it.
I know one of the things that a lot of people mentioned, and I've seen one comment thus far, but people have mentioned it in other ones, and you've also mentioned the concern is like, what if Richard Allen dies in this prison?
I mean,
Like
dude,
how horrible that would be. And
that would be beyond. Allison's frozen with like a face that I'm sure she's gonna love.
wow.
Wow. I mean, that would be devastating. Let me put it this way. If Richard Allen is killed in prison, the world's going to explode. Like, I mean, if he's killed in prison, everything that everyone was saying about the Odiness and like the potential, like that these guards are, I mean, everyone's going to know. Like, I mean, that's the only reason I think that he's going to be safe because they are watching him. Somebody would have to be like off their rocker to try to get to him at this point, unless, you know, the oldest prison trick in the book where they get another inmate to do it. You know, under the guise that, look, the guy's a child killer. I had to put him down. It's like how Dahmer got killed, you know, in prison. I mean, it's the same thing that happened. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they got him on lockdown. It's part of the reason they have him in solitary 23 hours a day. You know, so but it would be a nightmare if that happened. Amy K, I don't know if I'd already put that one up. Thank you. I think Amy just keeps donating and it makes me so happy. Huh? Oh, she's back.
She keeps asking for a recap. That's who's. I don't know what TLDR stands for, but she's asking for a quick recap.
Okay. All right. So, super quick recap for
if
all
I
those
freeze like this again.
Yeah. Why do you keep freezing? It's weird.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine, but your picture is frozen.
At least I'm not like, oh, my hair, like you this afternoon.
Yeah, you know, my hair looked crazy. It was raining though. I was out there in the.
All right, sorry. Give Amy.
All right, so here's a quick recap. Essentially, we went in today. This court date came out of nowhere. Like it wasn't scheduled ahead of time. The judge like put this order out last week. We knew that it was coming up today. She was very vague about what was going to be heard today. She kind of put it on like, look, we're going to be scheduling like what's going to be happening on the 31st. But you know, there's another thing that came up that we have to deal with. We then learned that the other thing was the leak, which I call the drip of the information of, you know, these crime scene photos that had been leaked out, but were contained. Frankly, they were contained, at least as to this point. You know, we don't know how many people they went out to, but the creators that got them didn't put them on blast, didn't let them out for the world to see. So going into the hearing today, it became apparent that the word on the street was that that the state was moving to have Baldwin disqualified, to have him removed from the case. They brought in a ton of cops. Their witnesses were there. They were ready to testify as to their investigation, what they'd learned in the last week about the leak, about how it happened. And, you know, and I was explaining to people, Al, that like, look, it doesn't have to just be intentional. I mean, if he was reckless, he had a duty under the protective order that anyone that has access, that they follow the protective order. I mean, it was a technical violation. There's no question about it. So ultimately what happens
You've seen that before.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Like up live and in person. Like it happened to us.
You know, I don't know if you can find this, but Charmaine asked what maybe she thought was a stupid question, but I think is an excellent question. She asked if Richard Allen needs to waive speedy trial again due to getting new counsel. So the reason I say it's a really good question is because obviously you would think that, you know, the lawyers got some input in that and, you know, but no, he does not need to waive again, but that doesn't mean he can't now demand. And you can do that anytime. You waive it, and then you put your demand, and you're like, all right, now you're on the clock. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can. I wish that you weren't frozen. It's
now
weird.
You're frozen on my end. I'm try to figure it out.
Am I frozen, y'all? Are we both frozen?
Man, we're on the same internet.
I know, but it's like I look like I'm moving. I'm gonna look on the YouTubes. Like, dude,
No.
like we've done everything we can with our internet. It kind of is what it is out here. Like I
Oh
bought.
yeah, you're moving on them. I just can't see you moving because of whatever's going on with my computer.
Yeah, you're frozen. In the meantime, Charmaine, like given until it hurts. Like seriously. Maybe a stupid question, but will Rick need to waive speed? Oh, you just answered that. Never
Yeah,
mind.
but put it up for her.
Okay, there it is. So did you answer that completely?
I did. I was just going to say that, and I think I did say that he can decide, with the advice of this council, if he wanted to make a demand so the clock starts to count again. But oftentimes things like that, and I'm, like earlier we talked about how one lawyer is not going to be stuck with the motion of another lawyer. They can adopt it or they can't. Things like, for example, had he waived his right to a jury trial, I don't think that his new lawyer could have come in and undo that.
Yeah, no, agreed. Truth, Adam. And by the way, Adam Malone, if y'all don't know, has an awesome new YouTube channel himself, and it's Real Crime. In the spelling, he'll have to type in here because it's what you'd expect from like kind of a country dude who's not real good at spelling. Real Crime with Cletus. It's hilarious. It's brilliant. Adam's a really, really bright guy. Everyone should definitely be checking that out. I check it out. It's really funny. Even though I don't always agree with him, I love him nonetheless because, as you all know, we don't all have to agree. So, as a matter of fact, I hate when we all agree. I mean, we argue for a living, so like it's kind of my jam. So, I never get upset when people disagree with me. I do get upset when people are like, like I'm never gonna watch you again because I don't agree with what you say. I mean, that's kind of a closed-minded person, and frankly, good riddance. All right, let me ask you this, Allison.
If you can still hear me,
I can hear you fine. You're frozen. Wow, no picture. Okay, what about now that this stuff has been thrown out there? Okay, let's assume the new lawyers obviously or lawyers are going to obviously have heard what the strategy is. Is there any way to walk it all the way back and ignore it as if it doesn't exist in the world? Is there a
sure.
world that can happen?
Well, in the world of that courtroom and in the world of those proceedings, for sure.
I'm talking about in real life.
No, in the planet.
I'm talking about in real life. Like, how can you walk that back? Like, we all like if they're like, okay, we're going to ignore everything that they say. Because remember, strip away the Odinism stuff. Strip it away. Forget about ritualistic sacrifice. I don't think it was a ritualistic sacrifice. Allison does not think it was a ritualistic sacrifice.
I still think the crime scene reeked of some sort of
thing.
Okay.
It's a different thing. Like, that's not an actual, we're doing a sacrifice to go to Valhalla. I mean, it's not
right. It was somebody who wanted to kill somebody who also believes in something relative to
like there's elements of it. There's elements of that pagan Norse religion, right? Some version of it, right? So, but
or it's staged or it's whatever the case may be.
Right. But strip all that away and just look at the actual evidence that was presented to the defense by the state with, this guy, Elvis, who's, basically admitted to two of his sisters. Yes, he's got a low IQ. Yes, I've had debates about whether or not people are more inclined to lie or not lie about, certain things. Are they able to come up with things out of whole cloth if they have a low IQ? Like if I would need to know from Murphy, who was one of the three trustworthy cops that they call them, the three guys who continued to investigate beyond after the rest of the unified command quit doing it. And, what did he ask this guy? Did he tell this guy, look, where were you at? Was this kid giving facts about the crime scene that only somebody who was there would know? Like, those are the things we have to know. Like, you have to assume, because when Click goes and writes a letter to McLeland and says, man, I am seriously concerned. And the letter exists. It just does. It absolutely exists in this world. And meaning that he went to McClellan and said, yo, I'm extremely concerned with why you've charged this guy, because based on the investigation we've done, I don't think he's the guy. Like, that conversation was supposed to take place. So when he goes and meets with them and they don't bring it up, they're like, don't worry about it. We got this well in hand, man. Like, this thing is in the bag. Like, he had a problem with it. And like when the Click statement first came out, for some reason, people were only talking about the first half of his statement where he says that nobody in law enforcement believes that this was a ritual sacrifice. However, what they're skipping is the fact that he said, however, we don't think that Richard Allen is the guy. That's the second part of the statement that no one was talking about. Like, it's like they started throwing out there that Click had walked away from the defense because it was too fanciful, way too far afoot, and that we're just not feeling it. But there's a second half to that statement that never came out, or came out sporadically way after the fact, as opposed to all in one lump statement, which is what it should have happened with it. So I don't know, man. I just think it's going to be really, really hard to walk that back. I don't think it's going to be possible, because I'll be wondering, so these guys are just choosing to ignore all that shit? Because you can't unring the bell. Like, we know as a society that these facts exist. How do you ignore it? I think they're somewhat stuck in it to a certain extent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then you've got Jody Hook, if you want to put her question up. If Ari's new attorney doesn't want to go the way of his old attorneys, how receptive will the judge be to RA requesting new counsel? Typically, it is not something that that the defendant can do. When you've got court-appointed counsel, you've got your defendant's lane. What am I going to plead? What am I going to waive? And then you've got everything else in the attorney's lane, which is the theory of the case, the theory of the defense, what witnesses they're going to put on, what evidence they're going to show. So typically that kind of thing doesn't fly. But sometimes early on, like in a case where it's like the first time and the defendant's saying, my lawyer's not listening to me, he's not taking, doing this, doing that, they might let him swap. But in a high profile case, lawyer's already been changed once, they don't have to do it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's tough though, it's tough. Like, cause and that part of it that we were talking about when I was driving home, like it's strange that she didn't bring Alan out. Like, I don't even know if he made it to the courthouse.
Well, she said that she turned around and sent them back, is what I thought she said. I think he was in like a holding cell somewhere.
Oh, so you think I never saw him. Like, I never saw hide nor hair of him. Like, he never made any kind of, I never saw him walking back in the hallway back there. Like, I never saw him. But I mean, like, typically if we're withdrawing from a case, the judge has our client on the record at the bench saying, look,
were you given notice of this?
And what are your feelings about it? You know what I mean? So the fact that didn't happen is strange. And I don't know. Do you think that
I think there was probably something on the record. I would assume, not on the record, I'm sorry, in chambers, a discussion. I would be shocked if it didn't occur. Did you discuss this with your client? Does he know this is going on? At least that much, I
mean, like, if I were to put on my tinfoil conspiracy hat and think about the timing of this, the timing of the leak, so close in time to after when the state had filed its affidavits wherein they had to admit that the prison guards were wearing Odin patches, after McClellan had doubled down in the subpoena for Richard Allen's mental health records. This seems like an ultra convenient thing for them to have happened
to get rid of the lawyer.
All the pressure off the state and to get rid of these two guys.
For sure.
I'm not suggesting that that's what happened.
I've seen it before.
I'm just saying it's not crazy to think. And like, I have so many people slipping into my DMs from this area that are like, you have no idea how. I
feel like that's like not the right reference, husband of mine.
That's what it is.
Slipping into my DMs.
You're just too like non-social media savvy. That's the term.
I don't know.
That's what all the youngsters use. That's what
when they're slipping in for like something nefarious. Like,
all right, easy, Grandma.
All right.
All right. So wait, did we give Desiree love here? So Desiree kicked us out with a $10 holla. Love it. This is great insight from you both. I missed something in the beginning and haven't been watching today. First, who's the guy who filed the snookered motion and what is it titled? All right.
That's really funny. Before he answers the question, that was like when I was reading it to him while he was driving, and we just kept saying how he was snookered.
I mean, what a great, like bringing back snookered is amazing. So that guy was hired by Baldwin, Andrew Baldwin, one of Richard Allen's former attorneys, hired this guy who's a criminal defense lawyer in Indy to represent him in this matter. So, and he's the guy, and this is the document. It's the memorandum regarding possible disqualification or sanctions. So that's
why what made me say the judge wasn't completely surprised, because clearly she was entertaining disqualifying or otherwise sanctioning Baldwin. And
right. I mean, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, people don't understand that there were conversations that had taken place.
Right. This didn't get filed out of the blue.
Right. Like out of thin air. Like Baldwin is like, he was put on notice that she was having this hearing, that's what today was about.
And he probably quit before he got fired.
Yes.
That was, so my assumption before I really knew much of anything, I told Bob, sounds to me like the judge is like, look, I'm either going to remove you and sanction you, which then could devolve into a disciplinary issue for this lawyer and, become a much bigger issue, result in discipline, some of that stuff. And he's just like, all right, I'm out. But again, that is just an assumption. And I did see someone over there talking about what aspects are just facts and what might not be. So that was my assumption based on, based on the fact that he seemed to have given up after he was ready to fight.
Right. All right. Jen with another like $5 holla. Thanks, Jen Taylor. Love you. Long time. Do you think the judge requested briefing from the defense on this issue? Absolutely.
Or at least warned them that this was coming. So, and gave them the opportunity did something to prompt this filing. Definitely said something like, this is where I'm headed with this. I'm going to want to address this. You might want, give you the opportunity to submit something is definitely a possibility.
Hence this document. Like, I mean, the document is proof that they had a heads up. Like Baldwin knew it was coming. Like in a case like this, like that's what we're saying. There's a lot of meetings that go on that are not of record. They're not on the docket.
And that's not in and of itself unusual.
Right. It's not unusual at all. You know what I mean? It's like the judge will say, look, y'all need to come in. We got issues. Or she had a teleconference and had McClelland and Rosie and Baldwin on the phone. And they're like, she's like, all right, y'all are fucking this up. Like we need this has to get dealt with like now.
Dang, you got fined.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I might have gotten fined. I think somebody told me if we're like way deep into it and if I drop F-bombs, that we'll survive it. So
we'll just piss off all our listeners.
Yeah, sorry. I try to I like to swear. I'm a swearer. We're both swearers, but
we're swearers.
So we don't want to piss anybody off. All right. So brutally honest, thank you so much. And look, it's in euros. What's cooler than getting euros? I love euros. Funny, but very true saying. You'd be better off sandpapering a lion's ass in pork chop panties than to find yourself on the other side of the fence. How true is that? That's super true. Read it a few times so it sinks in. I had read it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get it? You get it? All right. So let's see.
Don't forget to thank Debbie Sure
Where is she? Did I miss
Sherry
it?
Share.
Hold on. Let me see.
It's in she gifted 5 memberships.
Oh, Debbie's another like just fantastic member
She's
of
a
the community.
gifter.
She's a gifter, and she's like we have so many of our beautiful like Shaming a Jay fans, Publicly Buzz fans, like our community is in here like just giving the love like constantly, and we adore you guys. Debbie, the $5 holla. I love it so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Got a question, got a comment from Stacy Reed.
Stacy Reed, thanks for all the hard work you guys do to bring us this true crime goodness. No, thank you, Stacy Reed, for
Yes,
that $5
thank you.
holla. We appreciate that. All right. Let's see. I could probably keep going on. So does like anybody have any other questions? Because I really do want to answer them.
What about this Desiree? Did we oh no, we just answered that. Sorry.
Let's see. Shenanigans will continue until this happens. Prosecutions are judged and held to account. Comes up in Colorado. I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, like this case is like on like off the rails, and I'm like extremely concerned about it. And it's like we're basically starting at scratch now, you know. And it's like I was talking like you didn't see it, but Al, like when I was there, I was like devastated sitting right behind Richard Allen's wife, who like the entire hour and a half really was like weeping, could not stop crying. Like, so you knew that they were telling her what was going on, that like, look, your
Which
husband
speaks volumes, by the way, about whether she felt that phone call was an actual confession.
Thank you. That's what I said. I mean, like I said exactly that. I said there is no part of me that does not think that she is not 100% behind her husband. Like that, just I do not think that she for 1 second believes that Richard Allen killed those 2 girls, like at all. You know,
So Debbie wants to know if you think RA is faking it, why or why not?
Faking what?
I'm assuming maybe like his present mental state or his.
I have no idea what his mental state is. I mean, he's not faking like losing 60 pounds. That's tough to fake. You know, I mean, I guess, Debbie, I'd ask you, if I were to put you in a cell 23 hours a day for 12 months, how do you think you'd fare? I mean, like
Hey,
that,
babe, do people?
I mean, like, and I could ask it to anybody. If you were in a cell for 23 hours a day, and imagine if you will, that you're innocent. I just imagine that you are just ripped off the streets. You're thrown into a cell, and they're like, we're charging you with 2 counts of first-degree murder. We believe that you killed these girls, and you know that you didn't do it. And then you're stuck in a cell 23 hours a day, an innocent person. Just try to like think about that, like like what that would be like mentally. Be a tough gig, man.
And then I wanted to ask you, Bob, so are the people in green, does that mean like they're a member or something?
So if you're watching on YouTube, like all of our
now I'm looking on the comments.
Oh, now you figured out the comments.
But they're not, never mind. Go on.
You see where it says live and starred? If you click on starred, it'll just show the people that have been generously giving to us all live.
No, but like if they are a member, do their names show up green in the comment thing? And they have these little circles next to their names?
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, so then we should pay attention to their, we should also just do some of their questions, because I just saw one from.
This is truth. Sherlock Kendra ain't lying right there. Like, that's not the norm. Like, pretrial detainees are kept in county jails. They're typically never kept in prisons. You know, I mean, and that's the other thing. Now, like, what else has gotten swept under the rug, which we've all kind of addressed, like what happens if Richard Allen gets killed in this prison, is the fact that their motion for immediate transfer out of Westville is now gone or not being addressed. I mean, any way you want to put it, you know, it's
right, and Heavy Metal Rehab was like, why did the judge act shocked? And I we agreed with you. We both said that she was, you know, at least expecting to remove one of them. And we're thinking she wasn't anticipating him being left with 0 lawyers.
Right.
I mean, it's like this is in the judge book somewhere. Let's remove one of them from this power group so the group's less effective. I mean, I've seen it in Omaha.
Well, it's crippling. It's crippling to a defense team. Like when it happened in Omaha, it was like literally cutting my right leg off, and they didn't give me like a peg leg to put on there. Like I just had to like hop on one leg.
Didn't have a stump.
I had a stump, but I didn't have a peg leg.
Peg leg for the stump. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Shake, yo, rumpa. Okay, sorry. I slipped into some beasties. All right. I think we can call it. We're going to an hour 41. Look, you people that have been on here for going on 2 hours, you are amazing, and I love you. Allison, do you love them?
I love them.
I love them more. You guys are amazing. We hope that we're giving you good content. We always try to give you the straight. Oh, wait. We got another $4.99, $5 holla. All right, last one. Finally started the Gacy tapes, and it's phenomenal. Everyone should listen to ASAP. Amy K.
She paid us to give you like a
love. I know.
Right.
So like she paid me to promote my shit.
Promote you, right? That's what I was trying to say.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amy K. I really, really appreciate it. And y'all, again, listen, since I don't have the links because I'm so old-fashioned. What's a link? How do I put a link on here?
I'm sure you'll love to hear that Underachiever quoted Shawshank, "Salvation lies within." That's Bob's, one of Bob's all-time favorites.
Not one of mine. It is mine.
I didn't want to, go out.
It's number one. No, Shawshank is number one on the list, kids. That is my favorite movie of all time. And then closely behind is Godfather 1 and 2. Like, so but like Shawshank is that movie where it doesn't matter at what point in the movie is. If I clip past it, I'm like, oh.
All right, remind the people about Steve or your other mods or.
Okay, it's not my mods. It's like our mods, and we've got some new mods that I'm going to be super excited about putting on task, and they're both in here, so I'm super excited about it. All right, so yeah, everybody, Publicly Buzzed, amazing station. Their channel is fire. I'm on there all the time. I love those two guys.
I mean, truth be told, I actually watched that before, like you guys were. And I don't really do a lot of this stuff.
I actually felt like I didn't want to, like I wasn't going to go live.
I watched, not tonight. I mean, before
I was watching them before I went live instead of preparing for this.
I just meant in general, before you and them even developed this like friendship, or at least I knew about it. I had watched their
and they're like the most lovable guys in the world. Like Steve is like I always say, his voice, the sound of his voice just makes me happy. Like, I don't know what it is. When I hear Steve speaking, it makes me sit up in my chair a little more. I get this little smile on my face. Like it's truth. So Publicly Buzzed, Joe Jackalone, another amazing New York cop. The guy's fire. We absolutely love him. Go to his channel. And then, of course, my brother from another mother, The Shaming of Jay, his channel. He's there every day for you. Dude is like the second hardest working man in show business next to me, because I'm about to I can't even feel my fingers anymore. I'm like working so hard. But these guys are my family. I love these guys so much. They're powerhouse shows, and they bring great content every single time they're on. The amount of work and preparation that these guys put in is unbelievable. And I would be remiss if I did not thank Stevie Irwin, who does all of our graphics, Allison. I'm not sure if you're aware of who makes our show look good.
Right. Stevie, whoever that is, I'm super thankful.
I have so much love for him, and he's incredibly talented. I can be I'll text him, and I think he's a late sleeper, and I'll be like, Stevie, hey man, I'm giving you no notice, but I need a thumbnail because I'm doing this. And he's like,
Jay is the man. Did you mention how The Shaming of Jay, they got everybody souped up for your earlier live, and him and his wife are amazing.
What were you not listening 3 seconds ago? And
I'm sorry. It's been a long morning.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Oh, day,
Yeah,
evening,
right.
whole,
I mean, I
all
drove
of it.
8 hours. I drove 8 hours round trip today, sat in the hear for 5 minutes of a hearing. I want everybody to understand that. So I drove 4 hours to get there, stood in line for 2 hours, waited for an hour and a half in court, and she came out for 5 minutes and said, "Take care, y'all. Take care." It's been, and then I'm out on the road again. And then I jump on Vinny, and then I had to give love to our people. And so we did this live, but it's worth it. To me, it's like it's everything. So we love you all. Thank you so much. Remember, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, please share, and always, always, always be kind to each other. And remember, we're only going to give you one thing, and it's just facts. We love
You
you.
guys, thanks everybody.
See ya. Boop.